Today we are going to be looking at one of the most important things in color grading, and there's not a color grading tool inside. That's right, we're going to be looking at exports, what settings to use and how to get the most out of the delivery page. So if this video is for you, keep watching and let's jump straight in. Okay, here we are in DaVinci Resolve. As you can see, we've got a number of clips. These are all pre-graded and these are the clips that we are going to be using for our timeline in our export settings. Let's head over to here to this little rocket ship and let's go over to the delivery page. So quick orientation of the delivery page. Over here, we've got all of our settings. Here's our viewer. These are our clips. We can toggle these on and off with this little button at the top here. Here's our timeline. We have this little band here and this will dictate what is going to be exported in your timeline. To change this, all you need to do is click somewhere on the timeline and the playhead will move and you can press out. And if you go to the other side and you want to press in, so I is for in and O is for out. So let's change this back. Let's go to the first frame. Let's press in and let's go to the last frame and let's press out. Up here, we've got what media we're using. So we're going to use Prefer Camera Originals and we've got our bypass, color, grades and fusion effects. Important thing to note, if you select this because you want a flat pass, you will still export all the color grades, but we'll show you how to do that in a bit. Okay, so let's go up to the custom export and the settings. Usually I like to use the custom export button up here because it gives me full control. However, the only other thing that I will use if we slide across here is this Premiere XML. What this does is it will export XML and all of the individual clips color graded, so you can rebuild the timeline in either Premiere or DaVinci. Really, really handy if you're sending it back to an editor or an online editor. So let's go back. Let's make sure that we've got custom export. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to our file name, which is here. And what we're not going to do is we're not going to call this final export. So the reason for not doing this is if you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 projects and they're all named this kind of way, you're not going to be able to know which one's which. And if you've got a client coming to you and saying, please, can you send me an export for this or can you redo this? You're going to be in the weeds. So let's leave that alone and let's name it exactly how we should, which is the name of the film, which is in this case my film, and then we're going to use the version number or the lock, so we're just going to put locked color or COL for short. Next we're going to put what the audio is. In this case it's stereo. If you was doing a 5:1 you'd write 5:1. So the next one is the display space, so we're just going to go rec 709. We're going to do the resolution. In this case it's 1080p, and then finally we're going to put the codec. So we're just going to export this out as a ProRes 444. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the location, and this means where the film is going to be saved on your hard drive. At the moment, we can see that we've got it on my grade drive. So let's click this button, browse. So as you can see, I've already got my file labeled here, which is my film export. So we're going to click that and we're going to press save. And now that my film exports is now part of that location. So moving on, we have the render settings. So it's either a single clip or an individual clip. The single clip will export the full timeline as a full clip, and the individual clips will export all the clips individually. This isn't to be confused with what we mentioned earlier, which is the Premiere XML here, because clicking the individual clips like that will not give you the XML. And if you send all the individual clips back to an editor or an online editor, and it's a feature and there's 1,000, it's going to be bad times. You're going to need to do the re-export. So just bear that in mind. Other quick thing to note, we're just going to look at the audio page. Make sure the audio is clicked on. This has caught me out so many times, so just double check that and then you're good to go. I'm not an audio guy, so please forgive me for not being able to guide you on what the audio. What I will say is if you have a delivery sheet or a spec sheet for broadcast, follow that exactly and you'll be fine. We're going to look at the file quickly, but the only thing we're going to look at is this bit down here, disk space used after render. So just double check this, because if this percentage here is over 100%, you don't have enough room on your drive to save the export. So let's go back over to the video and we're just going to look at this. This is the most important thing. This is the format. We've got a QuickTime ProRes, Apple ProRes 444. So that is what we're going to export out, but we're just going to have a look at a couple of other flavors, if you like, in the Apple ProRes family. The other things that I generally will use is a 422HQ, and generally this is a screener or for broadcast, because that's the flavor for broadcast. I will use a 422LT, and generally I will use this for revisions for clients, but it's not very good if you want to grade under, but it's great for viewing. A few other things that we're going to look at. So we're going to come away from QuickTime and we're going to go down to the MP4. If you are exporting to YouTube, you want to go to MP4 H.264, and then you want to come down here and you want to restrict the data rate to around 15,000 to 20,000 if you're exporting in 1080p, and then you just want to double that to 40,000 if you're exporting in 4K up to YouTube. And this will ensure you have the minimum amount of data loss while also being friendly to YouTube for the file size. So we're just going to press that to automatic. We're not going to be exporting out to an MP4. So let's just have a look at the two other formats that we're going to look at quickly. The other one is a TIFF file. Generally, I will use a TIFF file for any stills that my clients want or any stills that I use for social media. And I'll always do these in RGB 16-bit. You can also use the PNG, and the same thing there. Make sure you just select RGB 16 bits, and this will give you the full 16-bit color of that PNG. But it's not something I tend to use. Having said all of that, let's go back down to QuickTime. Let's make sure that we've got an Apple ProRes. You can also do a H.264 in ProRes, although MP4 is preferable. Just want to pause there quickly. If you are getting anything out of this video, if you could like and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. It's all going to be color grading based and how to get the most out of your videos so your videos look absolutely spectacular. Thank you. So moving down, we have timeline resolution. As you can see, the timeline resolution is grayed out. We've got 1080p timeline, and you can change this, but I would strongly advise you not to do this. If you do need to export a 4K and a 1080p timeline, head over to the cut page just over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to this little drop down up here and click that. This will allow you to change the aspect ratio of your project, of your timeline rather, really, really quickly. So we're just going to go up to here to HD or 4K as I should say. And if we go back to the delivery page, you can now see that the grayed out timeline is now 4K. So we're just going to head back over to the cut page. We're going to go to this little drop down and we're going to put that back. So we're going to go to full HD and we're just going to come back to the delivery page. If you try and force DaVinci Resolve to do a 4K on a 1080p timeline, you may end up with render errors. So it's always best to do it that way. Moving on, we've got the frame rate. Leave this as it is. The only time you would change this is if your project has been shot in 23.976 and you want to upscale it to 24. If you click that, it will give you an option for 24 frames a second, and it will take care of all the interpolation. You won't have drop frames or anything like that. So that's the only time you'd ever use that. The only other thing actually that I've not mentioned is very occasionally I will export a 444 XQ. You wouldn't export an alpha in a ProRes 444 only without the XQ because you'll end up again with render errors, and that's not what your clients want or what you want. Chapters from markers, if you've got chapters in your timeline and that will be embedded into the export, that's really handy if that's what you want to do. So we're just now going to go down to the advanced settings and drop this down here. So we're going to leave the pixel aspect ratio alone. We are also going to leave the data levels alone to auto. Color space tag, I like to tag this Rec 709, Rec 709A, because in previous versions of Resolve, you would have to do this for the gamma tag, and this is all to do with the Mac Color Sync, whereas you would have to tag the video for Apple to read that. It's only an Apple thing, doesn't really matter anymore. This is done automatically. I'm not quite sure for HDR, that's something I would need to look up, but I would always personally just tag HDR. So if I was doing hybrid log gamut, Rec 2100, I would put those tags in there anyway, just to be on the safe side. So we're not going to worry about any of this. And we're just going to skip straight down to enable flat pass. So earlier in this video, I said to you, if you click this button, you will bypass color and fusion effects. But if you exported it with this on, you would still get those effects. The way to get around that, if you wanted a flat pass, is to enable the flat pass here to always on. If you click this on, you will need to manually click this off. It has happened to me before in the past where I'm just getting a flat pass and I can't work out why, and it's because I've not done this. So don't make the mistake that I have. The Vision OS bypass disabled sizing and blanking outputs. That's also to do with Vision goggles, so unless you're doing that work, don't worry too much about it. Last thing that we're going to look at is the subtitle settings. You'll have to click this on manually if you have subtitles, and you'll have to do this every time you come away from the export page. So the format is as a separate file, embedded captions, or burn into the video, and then export as. Generally you want an SRT. If you are asked for something else, then do what you're asked for. Unfortunately, Resolve can't do an SCC or an AS11. I really wish those options were there, but this isn't something that it can do. Okay, great. So now that we've gone through all of our export settings, all we need to do now is set our renders. So we're just going to go down to add to render queue. As you can see over here in our render queue job list, for want of a better phrase, we've got our render. This is denoted by a white box. So if you did want to export a 1080p and a 4K version, you would need to have this set up in the timeline. To access those timelines, just go to this little bit at the top here, this little drop down arrow, and you can access all the other timelines direct in the delivery page, which is really handy. So let's just go down to my film 4K. Let's go up here because we want to change the naming convention from 1080p to 4K, otherwise we'll overwrite it. So we don't want to get confused. Now we're going to go add to render queue. So the other thing that I do want to do actually is I do want to do a 1080p version, but a 422 HQ. So let's just go back up to here. Let's press this drop down. Let's press my film 1080p. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to delete that 4K. We're going to press 1080p. And we are also going to take out the ProRes 444 and put 422 HQ. We'll also need to change the actual type of the codec. So we need to go down to here and we also need to select the ProRes 422 HQ. So let's add that to the render queue. As you can see, we have 3 renders that are now in our render queue, but we only have one of the renders with a white box around it and the button says render 1. To set all of these renders at the same time, or one after the other, because you can't do them all at the same time, is that you need to press shift and then just click all of the other renders in the queue, or the ones that you want to export. Down here you can see the button has now changed to render all. So if we press that, all of these timelines will now export. It will tell you how much what's completed, how long it's going to take, and the percentage it's taking. Last thing that we need to do is we just need to check these to make sure that they've all come out correctly. So we're just going to double click or right click if you're on a mouse or a trackpad and press reveal in Finder. This will bring up the file of all of your exports in. And because we've done everything properly, this will bring up the file that you've named, so my film exports, and this will show you exactly what your renders are or what your exports are in the folder. So guys, that's all we've got time for today. If you are looking to increase your color grading skills and your knowledge base, and you do want to learn from a professional standpoint, do remember to like and subscribe. I've got loads more content coming up. The next video that we've got is about balancing shots. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.